Hello and welcome back to Embodied Astrology, where I break down one piece of key astrology for the week and tell you all about how you can work with it to live your best life. 'Tis the season, you guys. Mercury retrograde. It's here. And I think it's one of those transits that people get really freaked out about. And I understand why. I mean, Mercury retrograde is known to be one of those periods where things just get messed up. Like your internet goes out, your flight gets changed at the last minute, you're stuck in traffic for a really important thing. It is just one of those times where things get a little squirrely, but it really isn't something to fear because we actually experience Mercury retrogrades quite often. They typically happen a few times a year. So while I think this is one of those transits that gets like a lot of buzz on the internet and people really freak out about, and they're always like, oh no, Mercury retrograde, the sky is falling. Like, I'm just here to tell you guys, like, don't freak out. It's actually not that big of a deal. We experience these quite often, but I am going to tell you what you can possibly expect during Mercury retrograde, what to do, what not to do, what this particular retrograde will mean. So let's dive in. The reason why Mercury retrogrades kind of make things get a little squirrely is that Mercury is the planet of communication and problem solving and scheduling and calendars and counting and accounting. And so when that planet stations retrograde, it starts to really slow down. And in astrology, symbolically, we use a retrograde period as kind of like a review. We're sort of like looking backwards. And so because Mercury isn't like flying through at its normal pace, like things are going to get slow, things are going to get clunky, things are going to be up for review. And so that's why we experience these little inconveniences that are kind of ruled by Mercury because the planet is not moving at its normal speed. In general, when we are in Mercury retrograde periods, you'll often hear astrologers advise against like making any huge decisions, signing any really big contracts, like upheavaling, is that even a word? Upheavaling your life in any significant ways, because again, it is this period where we're being asked more to like review things, right? This planet that's very important, that is all about like logic and thinking and communicating, is not moving at its regular speed. And so it's not generally a time where we recommend you to move forward or really take charge on things. It's more a period to like think about and review stuff. After the retrograde lifts, like absolutely the things that you think about and realize during this period, you should act on them if it still feels true and right to you. And obviously, like if you have to sign a big contract, if you have to travel during this time, I happen to be traveling on the day that the retrograde starts. So, you got to still live your life. Obviously, we can't just like hide under the covers and be afraid of astrology. It's just part of life, right? It's a good time to think and reflect and journal and be introspective and review stuff. Not necessarily a great time to like move forward and make big decisions. So this particular Mercury retrograde is actually happening in two different signs. The retrograde starts in Sagittarius and then moves into Scorpio. So let's get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty of that. I'll tell you all the dates so you know what to expect. All right, so the Mercury retrograde begins on Sunday, November 9th in the sign of Sagittarius. So a little bit about Sag. It's a fire sign just like Aries and Leo. We know fire signs to be a little bold, a little dynamic, a little dramatic, very passionate, very creative. Sagittarius in particular is a sign that is about growth and expansion and abundance and philosophy and astrology and being a lifelong learner and all these things. So as Mercury retrogrades through this sign, you might notice that you're reviewing these more Sagittarian themes. So you're thinking about travel, you're thinking about study, maybe like going back to school. You're thinking about all the ways you want to grow and expand. You're thinking about your long-term plans. These are all very Sagittarian themes that may come to mind as Mercury retrogrades through this sign. And then on November 18th, Mercury actually starts to retrograde through Scorpio. So Scorpio, different energy than Sagittarius. It's a water sign. We know all water signs, so Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer, to be very much about emotions and feeling and sensitivity. And Scorpio in particular is a very deep sign. It's the sign of power and transformation and power dynamics and wealth and kind of how we're all intertwined. It's about mental health. It's about psychology. And so you might start to notice that you're reviewing these more kind of like subterranean interrelational kind of dynamics as well. Maybe you're really getting into your ancestry. Maybe you're really starting to study certain power dynamics in your relationship, or even like the world at large, and you're considering how you maybe participate in that or not, or how you want to change the way you participate in that or not. Maybe you're starting to really think about or review like the state of your mental health. These are all very common Scorpio themes that may come up as Mercury also retrogrades through Scorpio. I know that I just went through like basically 2 weeks of astrology, and this is supposed to be astrology of the week ahead. So bearing that in mind, I just wanted to give you a little bit of like the Mercury retrograde landscape, because I know it is something that is going to be talked about online a lot. For now, as you move into this week, I would say just double, triple check all the stuff in your calendar. Make sure that your appointments are all in there. Don't just like trust your brain to remember stuff, especially during this time period. You want to make sure we have things written down, have your multiple alarms set, have your calendar clear, all of the things that can help us feel more organized and more sure of where and when we're supposed to be places is particularly helpful for this time. And again, I would say, even though this is about like embodying astrology, I would say like, don't stress about making major decisions, signing major contracts. If you do have to do those things, obviously just like read it really carefully, go over things with a fine-tooth comb. If you are traveling during this period, like I plan to be, give yourself a little extra time at the airport. All of these little things that will just make you feel more confident and calm and centered as things may go a little haywire around you. So that's it on this week's astrology. I hope this was helpful for you. If you want to know a little bit more about where exactly this Mercury retrograde is landing in your chart personally, this is determined by your rising sign, which is determined by your birth time. If you haven't gotten a chart reading by a professional astrologer before, highly recommend it. It is so incredibly illuminating and validating and inspiring. So if that speaks to you, you should definitely book a time with me. I offer a True You astrology reading where we talk all about how you can connect with your authentic self, how you can understand all the ways that your unique potential is waiting to be expressed, and it's all through the framework of your astrology. So if that is of interest to you, I encourage you to grab a time in my calendar. I will put the link below, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. Bye.